Tech Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Check on
read
whatever.
up on my iPad. I don't use it as much as I should. So
There was someone whose job was to put this lovely coral.
actually, I
up
do
here.
that. That's what I do.
That's you?
Yeah, that's
You-
all I do.
oh.
Yeah,
It's nice.
pretty nice.
It's all about the
pretty good
details.
gig.
I have to say,
Yeah.
it's all about the details.
Yeah. Did you notice how I stacked these
your
in
own book.
perfectly
Carefully
Yes.
on camera.
placed? Yes. Oh, water's awesome. Thank you. Do you want a water? Oh, you got a water. Okay, great. All right. So thanks, David, for coming out here
Sure.
to the desert in August. And
It's actually appropriate in Ventureland
Well,
because
'cause it's
making it through the desert is something that, as you heard, like sometimes you make it through the desert and there's some great outcomes at the end,
Yeah.
and sometimes you wither and die. And you kind of look and go, that sucked. That was a
hopefully that
sucky
doesn't
journey.
happen. Yeah.
Back to the beginning,
Right.
get some water, and start over.
Right. And so let's just get started. Jen did a great intro, stole my joke, and I'm just going to keep on rolling. But
Yeah.
and also, but she brought me water, so that's great. Tell us a little bit about your background as I tie my shoe. I'm so inappropriate. but-
Yeah, totally.
All right, keep going.
My background. When I talked to my mother after I was asked to join August Capital,
Yeah.
she said, "What's a venture capitalist?" And I said, "Oh, venture capitalists. This is what they did." And by the way, at the time, I had a description that was incredibly ill-informed because I actually didn't really know what a venture capitalist was when I became one. I don't think anyone really
just
knows
joined.
until
You
you
just
do it.
joined the group.
No,
You just
I was.
say it.
Well, so this is what. So I described for my mother what I
Yeah.
thought a venture capitalist was, and she said, "Oh my goodness, David, you've talked your way into a job that only involves talking." And I said, "Yes, that's true." And she said, "That's perfect for you."
Mother knows best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came from a Jewish household where you got to argue about things and had to use logic in order to earn dinner. And so I think that was good training. I went to school and I studied computer music.
Really?
And which is computer science and acoustics and psychoacoustics and psychophysics. It's this multidisciplinary thing. At the time I did it because I was really excited about 80s pop.
Oh.
And synthesis was this amazing thing that was
Yeah.
happening. But it turns out that there were a bunch of interesting companies that came out of that world of we're going to apply technology to sound, we're going to apply technology to music. It didn't qualify me to do anything other than go to law school, which I did then do.
Yeah.
I had every intention of being a lawyer, of being a litigator, whether a public defender, or, and argue for a living, because again, I was well trained for that. And after a few years of being litigator in New York, you know what? It's tiring. It is tiring to, wake up in the morning and to get ready to argue.
Right.
And you're like,
Yeah.
argue, and you get home, and then my wife would say oh, should we go to the such and such weekend? I'd be like, I don't think we should do that because it's
Turn
too
that off.
dry,
Yeah, right,
it's too arid, or whatever. And she's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, enough already.
Yeah.
So I think to a certain degree, she was like, you need to be done with this career. This is an unacceptable career in our life.
So you started investing.
And I got very lucky, and I agree completely that luck is an astonishingly important piece of every one of our lives, and it turned out, and timing. So it turned out that in my freshman dorm at Stanford was Jerry Yang. And he recruited a number of the earliest employees into Yahoo
Right.
out of this same freshman dorm. They were just a bunch of our friends
Right.
who were building this company. And I didn't have the good sense to join him, in part because I was too risk averse, to tell you the truth. I had 2 small children. I was an attorney.
Right.
Going into this startup world would have been, what was a bridge too far. But becoming a startup lawyer was not.
Right.
And so I came out to Silicon Valley to start representing startups, including Yahoo, because it seemed like, this is actually really interesting. And it turned out I was completely addicted, but I was mostly addicted to the business,
Okay.
right? I had to be a lawyer because that was my job and I was getting paid for it. But every minute I could possibly get involved in the business of these companies, I would do so, even though I had absolutely no business. I had no right to do that, right? There was no reason anyone should trust me.
You did music.
I did. I
yeah,
had a degree in computer music
yeah.
and a degree in criminology and a law degree.
There you go.
So I was perfectly well suited to opine on Evite, you know. But that's what happened. And so Evite in particular, I was representing the company, and my now partners had invested in the company, and we got to know each other over a bunch of board meetings where I inappropriately opined on the business, right? Where, you know, where in another company I was fired for doing exactly the same thing, literally fired. It was like that person is to never come back to our board meeting. And my client who loved me was like, I am sorry, the VCs have fired you. I'm like, can they do that? And he was like, they totally can do that. You know, it's like, wow, that sucks. I want to be a VC.
That's awesome.
So anyway, these guys got to know me, and they sort of said, hey, have you ever thought about the venture business? And I said, yes, I'm totally, yes, I find that very intriguing. Let's talk more. And so in 2000, right before the complete destruction of the public markets, I joined August Capital, and my partner, Dave Marquardt, said, David, lawyers suck at this, and you will likely fail. Welcome.
Welcome, yeah.
And I said, thank you. I have no intention of
Can't
failing.
wait to get started.
I have no intention of failing. You know, so let's get to it.
Awesome. So you've been doing it about almost
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah,
Wow,
15
great.
years.
And let's talk just so that folks know what kind of investing you do with you know, August Capital. Just give a quick overview of kind of stuff.
Yeah, August does high tech. We don't do bio or medical. The partners at August were the earliest investors in Microsoft, Sun, Compaq, Intuit, Symantec, Seagate, Xilinx, Skype, Postini's, Lilly, Splunk. So they've been, it's fun to sort of rattle that off. I could not as easily rattle off all the list of our failures because I don't like to say their names because
it hurts.
Not because I love all these companies. This is the thing that's also important. Like, we never go into an investment that we don't think is the next Skype or the next Microsoft. Like, that would be moronic. Why would you do that? So every time I invest in founders, I'm like, yes, you are the next Steve Jobs. You are the next, you know, whatever, Bill Gates, Tony Hsieh. Then they aren't, and you go, oh man, that was a bummer. And then someone else comes in your door, and you're like, you are the next, you know. You are Robin Chase, and I am so psyched to meet you, you know. And in the venture business, if you are right one time in 10, you're an amazing VC.
Wow.
If you're right one time in 20, you'll be employed as a venture capitalist for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
You guys cannot fail one time and 19 times out of 20 and stay employed as entrepreneurs.
So it's a pretty good gig.
It's an awesome gig. You know, I used to say it was a good job if you could get it, and now I say it's a good job if you can keep it. You know.
All right. So what kinds of rounds are you getting into then? What size? Just so folks know.
Look. August Capital is 6 people. We think that the venture business is a boutique business. That when I invest in a company, I want to have the time and the energy and the focus to spend with the founders and the team. So when it's working, I can be helpful and say, oh, you know, we need to bring in these great resources to make you successful. And when it isn't working, I have enough context and relationship and that I can make judgments about how can I be helpful.
So you're pretty hands-on.
Yeah. But what I will say, and this was sort of alluded to before, I don't think it's my job to tell you what to do. If I'm telling you what to do, I probably should bring someone else in, right? That's just for most of you guys, what the fuck do I know?
Yeah,
like,
we already heard,
I'm going to tell you what to do.
One out of the last decade, you're good, and that you're giving advice.
Well, more importantly, if you're doing a criminology and computer music startup, I'm your man. But music to stop
That's
crime,
your niche.
I have those nailed.
Yeah.
You know, Tim Westergren, who started Pandora, was a classmate of mine in the computer music department. We played a bunch of music. I said no to him 5 times.
Oh, man.
I helped him incorporate Pandora when it was called Savage Beast, and I helped him whatever. He's an amazing guy. I actually find him to be incredibly compelling and beautiful and wonderful. Like, he's the Adonis. I hate him. He's like the perfect man. And I said no to him 5 times.
Why?
Because it was a stupid fucking business. I mean, because it was like
that was your wheelhouse, man.
Well,
that was your...
I know. That was my one hope.
I know.
That was my chance to like know something.
Yeah.
And I said no to him. And maybe because I knew too much, right?
Right.
Truthfully, I was an intellectual property attorney. Why did I say no? Because I looked at it and I said, you have an incredibly challenging dependency, and that dependency is someone else's music.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And he came within inches of death on
Yeah.
multiple
No, he did.
occasions because he had this sole dependency.
Right.
And so I wasn't wrong, I was just stupid,
Yeah.
you know? Travis Kalanick, I backed his last company.
Red Swoosh, yeah.
Red Swoosh, which
Yeah.
was this, and Travis is a great, talk about passionate and, manic,
Yeah.
super hero of an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And so he came in to talk about Uber,
Yeah.
and we talked about it in the partnership, and we're
Yeah.
like, what do you think? And everybody said, no, this is a market for rich guys to call black cars. Like,
Right.
how big is that market?
Right.
We were wrong. Like, the
Right.
problem is that sometimes you're wrong.
Right.
My only hope is that I am, occasionally right, because that one hurts, man.
that's it.
Every time I see Travis, like, high five. Oh, way to go.
Good job. Yeah. What are some of your favorites then that are the ones that you said yes to that you like to talk about?
I mean, I'll tell you the story of Splunk because it is my favorite story only because it was this astonishing ride that you hope you always have, right?
Right.
I met 3 founders. They were working on something. Actually, interestingly, they were working on a product in the first instance that was not a real painkiller. Mm-hmm. And when I reached out to their potential customers, the potential customers said, yeah, this is, we might get to this after we solve these other problems. And so I went back to these founders and said, this is an interesting problem, but it's not a huge problem. And so it's not clear to me how whether you will get to this.
Right.
And they said, oh, that's interesting. We had a bunch of conversations. So over a year, and then I get a call from one of them who says, hey, we figured it out. Do you want to get together? I was like, of course I want to get together if you figured it out. Intriguing minds want to know.
Right.
And they sat down and they described for me the problem, the problem that ended up to being a gigantic problem, which is that machine data is increasingly large. Log files are a problem. When systems are broken, it is increasingly hard to figure out what's broken.
Right, yeah.
They said, well, why wouldn't you build a search engine that sits on top of this machine data that allows you to get more quickly to the answer?
Right.
And every minute that you save will save millions of dollars
great,
and
yeah.
whatever. And I said, I get it.
Yeah.
I think that totally is true. Now, again, I've said that of everything I funded. Like, I totally get it. It just turned out in this instance, they were totally right. You know?
No, totally.
So 3 guys, and they build this search engine for machine data before there was big data, and they start building it. I said, my diligence was, so can you guys build that? And they go, yeah, we totally can build it. I said, great.
You're hired. Here's a check.
Here's money.
Yeah.
Let's go do it.
Yeah.
And guess what? They built it. They built this search engine for machine data, and big data became increasingly important.
Right.
And they started out by going after IT professionals and doing system debugging, and that worked. But
Right.
it turns out you can use it for all sorts of other things. Anyway, long story short, the company went public, and there are now 1,200 employees,
Wow.
and it's a $6 billion business. And
Right.
changing the way people manage their systems, and that's kind of astonishing to me.
Right.
So it's important that they're doing something that's transformative and valuable and great. And I always say, that the byproduct of greatness is money, right? My job at the end of the day is to take someone else's money, put it into companies, and turn it into more money.
You're like a money machine.
That's my job.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
crank out the money.
Yeah.
Money creation.
Yeah.
I hate that. Like when I get a survey and I'm supposed to check off financial services, a piece of me dies. Because I think like financial services, what an awful thing. But entrepreneurship is amazing, right? So I try and pretend I'm with you guys. Like, I'm totally with you guys, whatever. And meanwhile, entrepreneurs are like, yeah, But unfortunately, if I've invested in you, you already have my money. So you go, totally, David, we're totally on, it's you and me, whatever. And then I leave the room and they go, like, yeah, where are you Sunday night at 2 a.m. or whatever?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I actually am checking email, but whatever.
Yeah. So let's talk about the criteria you look for in companies. I mean, it seems to be you've got to get companies all over the board.
Yeah, we do. So I have been investing since the beginning in both consumer businesses and enterprise businesses.
Now you've shifted, right? Like you've kind of shifted your direction a little bit?
No, I mean, I have actually been consistently both. I have From the,
Yeah.
right, exactly. I do
Consistently
it
everywhere.
all. I'm consistently omnipotent. I actually, and there's a reason. I got to August,
long as
and
there's a
and the
reason,
market
yeah.
went to, forget the reason. Fuck the reason. I don't have a reason. I don't need a reason.
Because, yeah.
I might have a reason,
Yeah.
I don't need one. Because
Yeah.
that's how important I am. I don't
Right.
need a reason. Me and Steve Jobs don't need a reason. That's why I park in, the handicap spot, because I don't need a reason.
Just because.
Why? It's free. It's available to me.
Right.
I do not do that. I do not. Where was I? I have no idea.
Criteria.
Okay, what are my criteria?
Yeah.
So when I got to August, I had only represented all these consumer startups, Yahoo and Ophoto and Evite, and
Right.
and my partner said, "Oh my God, the whole internet economy has crashed. Don't do that."
Diversify.
I said, okay, And so I said, all right, what else is there? What are these, what am I going to look at? And I realized that the answer to that was not going to come from me, right? So there are all sorts of VCs out there who tell you, like, they wake up January 1st, they're like, it's a new year, hooray. And then they sit down with a piece of paper and go, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin, and I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to invest in that. And I always say to them, like, if you are so smart, why don't you start the company? Like, Zuckerberg is richer than any VC. So if you
Right.
are so smart that you know what the future holds, start the company. I am not that guy. I don't know what the future holds, right? I don't know, So what I say is I'm going to meet amazing people, and I'm going to hear what they think is amazing and important.
Right.
And then I hope I recognize it, and in many instances I have stupidly not recognized it. But on occasion I have. Occasionally it's like,
Yeah.
the Splunk founders, or I've got this new company, Fastly, which is, those of you who need a CDN, if you're tired of Akamai, which is everyone, these guys built a better Akamai. Why did they build a better Akamai? Because the CEO was the CTO of Wikia.
Oh.
And it was massive traffic, and it was constantly changing. And so
Right.
they could never, ever cache it because it was always changing. And so by the time you went to find a cached page, it had changed, and it'd go
Right.
back to the root server. And they said, well, that's sort of stupid. All of content is constantly changing now. They built a CDN that is based on solid state memory and updates in real time. And so no matter what your site is, there's a 95% cache hit on the edge, as opposed to the 40% Akamai cache hit, right? When you hear that story, you go, oh my God, these guys are uniquely positioned to understand the problem and solve it.
Right.
It's a real problem. It is a unique and large problem.
No, but, and yeah.
Boom, go
And you
do it.
identify. I mean, you identify with that. I don't think everyone understands what you just said. So.
No, that's totally fair, right? I
Right.
mean, in
So,
fact,
yeah, right.
I think that
So I think that background you had in computers,
maybe it worked.
Actually, yeah,
Maybe it worked.
Yeah.
I went home after a short time. I went to my first partner meeting. And I went home, and my wife's like, how was your first day at work? And I said, I'm pretty sure I'm fucked. And and she said, okay, why so? And I said, because we just talked about microprocessors and systems and communications and all these things.
Yeah.
And everyone in the room knew what we were talking about, and I pretended, which I'm super good at. Like, I'm really good at pretending. Like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
Totally. That
Let's do that.
12 millimeter. What else? Totally.
Yeah.
That's crazy compelling.
Yeah.
And meanwhile.
Visionary.
Yeah, and I come home
Yeah.
to my wife, and I said, this is going to be short-lived, because after like 3 meetings of me going, that's super compelling. I go, David, why do you think so? I mean, nice sweater.
Yeah.
But it turns out this is the dirty little secret of venture, right? So year one, you come to it with whatever you've done leading up to that time. And I had been an attorney. I had represented lots of startups, so I'd seen lots and lots of businesses. But I didn't have microprocessor. I didn't have enterprise businesses. My first business I funded was a payments business. It was a company called PayCycle, which was taking payroll online. Intuit ended up buying it for $200 million. It was, I didn't know payroll. I didn't know this was an early cloud service there wasn't even such a thing at
Didn't exist,
the time.
Right.
But here's the deal. I get about 1,000 executive summaries in a year.
Okay.
And I read them.
Wow.
Some portion of them. But I read, everything that comes to me, I read in some capacity till I've determined, I've seen this, or it's not likely to work, or it's not a good fit, or whatever. And then 100 of those, I say, that's pretty intriguing. I'd love to learn more.
Yeah.
And then I copy Mary and say, hey, Mary, here's Mary. She'll get you in for an hour, and we'll talk about it. So now I have 100 hours of education where you tell me about your business.
Yeah.
Even the businesses I don't think are interesting, you tell me something interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I can tell you that there was a moment in time when someone came in pitching a business and said, hey, David, do you know what the second largest search engine in the world is? And I said, Bing or whatever. What is the second largest search engine in the world? YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world by orders of magnitude. It like crushes every other teeny little thing. But until you go, oh, wow, that's an interesting opportunity and mind shift and whatever else, you don't, why would, it wouldn't be in my brain.
Right.
Now that's a piece of context. And everything that I hear, so then of those 100, I dig into 10, and of those 10, I get excited enough and I fund, let's say 2.
Okay.
And then at those 2, then I have a board meeting once a month for the next however many years. I have one company now that I've been going to board meetings for 14 years. I've been married to my wife as of this summer 20 years, and of 14 of those, I've been going to Ebates board meetings.
Wow.
So, you better like that business, right? But so if it's 100 hours of education, let's just say it's 100 hours of education over the first 10 years that I was in the business, I got 1,000 hours of tech education, right? So would I necessarily understand the importance of of how the caching system works and how and varnish and how software is distributed and all that stuff in year 1? No,
Probably not,
I totally didn't. But in year 14, I've
You're getting in there and
you get
on the server, and
I'm killing it. I'm killing it.
Terminals.
You say that, but my partner Dave once told me this story. Dave Marquardt is the most amazing VC that most of you have never heard of. Has anyone heard of Dave Marquardt before? This is amazing. Dave Marquardt was the only private investor in Microsoft, has sat on that board for more than 30 years. He was the first investor in Seagate, the first investor in Sun, Compaq, Symantec, anyway.
Okay.
So not bad, not bad. Good times. I'll take 2 of those.
Yeah.
Any 2 of them would be fine. He was telling me the story of the early days of Sun, and he was saying, Sun was the first workstation where you had a base and then you had a CRT separate. And he said that there was a problem because the power distribution, I was having a hard time with the monitor, and the monitor was kind of fritzy or whatever. He said, but over the weekend, I wrote this driver that ended up solving the problem. And I was like,
roll those sleeves
back
up
a second.
Yeah.
You wrote you wrote the software driver that fixed the problem. And he was,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was good. That was good times. Thinking, that is value add. I tweeted the other day. Is telling jokes in board meetings value add? Because then I'm killing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it? I think so.
I think so.
I hope so. I hope so, because then I'm at least as good as everyone else.
So along the same lines, stuff you invest in, talking about criteria. Actually, did we get to
No, I didn't. Okay,
did we get to the dirty secret?
No, we never got to.
Okay, let's whisper it so everyone gets secret.
Yeah, so.
What is it? Just tell us. I'm curious.
Just get recommended by Tony Hsieh.
Okay, that's it. Solved it. Done. We can go home.
That's almost true, I have to tell you. No, I used to say it was people.
Right.
I have come to the understanding and appreciation that it's actually people, markets, and people, right? Now, and so I have been victim of a couple of big market shifts that are crushing me right now. And this is the thing about being an entrepreneur. You make a bet on a market and you think that things are working, and sometimes they do. Splunk was incredibly advantageous and put a ton of, I describe it like surfing. I'm not a surfer, but anyone who is a surfer, this is my simplistic view of surfing, which is you get out there are waves coming, right? And you paddle out. And if you are too early, boop, 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 you paddle out, you're too early, and then the wave crushes you, crashes on your head, and some surfer gloriously goes over you, and they win because they get that market, right?
And they're sharks.
They're just, and you're splashing around.
Yeah.
If you're too late, right, you go out for the wave, you're paddling, and you watch the wave go in front of you, you're like, I knew it, I had that, or whatever, and someone else is on it, and they're like
having a great time.
Gloriously, and you're behind, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
If you are lucky enough to paddle out at the right time, you would have to suck to not like look decent. You
Yeah,
know, you're
yeah.
like, I'm on the
It's a
wave. Like,
big-
how
yeah.
don't fall.
Right.
That's your job.
Don't
If
wipe
you
out,
hit
yeah.
the wave, don't fall.
Right.
And you'll be fine. You may not. That's the difference, you know. And being
Mm-hmm.
awesome is the difference between a $300 million business and a $3 billion business.
Right.
That's fine. You know,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? You guys would all be fine if you hit the 300. You
Just
did a
catch the
crappy
wave.
job on that wave and got your 300 million bucks, right?
Yeah.
And then it's incumbent on all of us then to work on form. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, cut. You know, whatever. Lean, goofy, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
So markets matter. Like markets are hugely important. So I want people. I think it's fair. Like you don't have to come to a market uniquely positioned to serve it. It's helpful. This company, PayCycle, René Lacerte, who started the company, his parents ran a payroll business. His uncle ran a payroll business
Got some
and sold it to Intuit.
Yeah.
He went to Intuit, where guess what he did? Ran a payroll business.
Right.
So when he decided he wanted to start a payroll business because he felt that it was being done the wrong way,
Industry
you go,
knowledge,
well,
yeah.
pff, if you don't know, no one knows. Like, right? So
Yeah.
that's one way.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the founders of WePay, who are
Yeah.
these 22-year-old guys who came out of Y Combinator or whatever, said, we're going to fix the online payment space. They, like many of us, had experienced the shittiness of the PayPal experience, and we're like, we're going to make this better. Why were they qualified to do that? They weren't. They totally
Right,
weren't. It was
right.
like my partners, oh, did you do diligence on them? Like, well, are we going to call their mother? Like, what, you know?
They said they could do it.
Yeah, they promised. They totally promised. Their mother promised. They all
Yeah.
promised.
They signed it.
So
Signed
why
up.
did I give them money?
Yeah.
Because I heard the story. I'd been in the payment space. I was excited about what they were doing, and every question that I asked them, they had very good, smart, thoughtful answers. Or they'd say, we do not know the answer to that, but here's what we think,
Right.
because of what we do know. So then I put them in front of two industry experts, a former CTO of Visa, former very senior guy from Intuit.
Yep.
Said, great, tell the story. And both of those people said, we would like to invest.
Oh.
Okay,
Done.
great. I don't, you know,
Yeah.
now let's go build a business together. Now you're
Right.
onto something,
Right.
right? And so now if you're building a marketplace business in any capacity, you should be using WePay because it is the best back end for all of those businesses. And as a result, it's growing like crazy because, and I'm happy to get into crowdfunding, guess what? It's going through the roof. People are spending, are collectively investing in
So much,
products and fundraising and all these things. And you need that back end to do that, and WePay's that back end. And those guys understood the market, but they were thoughtful and they
Yeah.
could pivot, and that's what they're on.
And what they didn't know, they figured out.
And they're awesome.
Yeah.
Completely
Okay,
awesome.
great. So you look for awesome.
I look for the awesome. If
Clears
any of
it
you
up.
have that,
Yep.
I would like to check in with me.
So are there any of the companies you worked with that have kind of hit, well, you don't talk about them, but hit these harsh realities, like things happen?
All the
that-
time.
Okay. So do you offer any like guidance, psychological or anything like that to kind of keep them going? Like, what do you do? I mean, you tell jokes.
I
That's what-
cry.
You cry for them.
I cry.
No, what do you
Not
do?
for them.
With them.
At them.
Oh, at them. Okay. What do you do? Do you do anything?
No, I'll tell you what. There are one thing I have certainly learned. I learned this by being with great investors who've been in the business a long time, seen businesses that really worked and businesses that took a while and were harder and then worked. Right? I mean, you know, Postini is a great example of that. Postini is this amazing antivirus, anti-spam product that
Enterprise,
Google bought.
yeah.
And it sits behind a lot of enterprises. Well, we funded it.
You and Foundry, I think?
99,
Yeah.
yeah, Foundry
Yeah.
came in, and
Later.
so- I think later. But
Yeah.
anyway, we funded it in 99 or 2000, and then it got really hard, and it was really ugly, and it looked like, and they were going after small customers, and it was tricky, and it was whatever. But my partner, John, who sat on the board, had been in the business, the venture business, a long time, and said, I think this is a compelling thing. We just need to get more per customer. We need to understand the sales process. We need, you know, so we put more money in when others weren't willing to. We and Foundry and others
Yeah.
like
Really
doubled
doubled
down
down,
and said, look,
yeah.
let's make sure, this is a good idea and this is a good team. Let's drive it to in the right direction. And they built an enterprise sales force and they moved up, you know, upstream and got bigger customers and it worked,
Yeah.
right? But they could have just as easily said, man, this is hard. And
go
it's like,
home.
oh, like,
Yeah.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
we've already lost $7 million, or why
Right.
would we want to lose 10?
Right.
Right? And so a lot of my job is to say, you know, is to say to entrepreneurs, look, is there an opportunity here?
Right.
Right? And I always say to you guys, look, I'm sitting on a bunch of boards, I'm investing across a range of companies. You got one, right? So my question often is this, putting aside the emotion of it, putting aside what you've done till today, let's just forget it. Like, is this worth your time? Or are there things that are a better use of your time? And when entrepreneurs say, we're absolutely convinced this is the right use of our time and that we can create value here, then good entrepreneurs say, good venture capitalists say, great, how can we support you to get there? Right. And that's hard, right?
Yeah.
And young VCs it's very scary.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell you, when I was early to the business and I had companies that were floundering, it was very scary. And it is a very tough thing to sit in a room with your partners and say, so in 2 weeks, we're going to close this business.
Yeah.
And we'll lose $9 million, right? Right? Because to the typical, $9 million is a lot of money.
It is, yeah.
And so you go, oh, wow, bummer. And then, and maybe you kind of say, well, what did you learn from that? You know, not in a like, tell us what you learned that, mostly like, how can we not do that? Right? Like, if there was some takeaway, if there's some takeaway, let's do it, you know? And, and so sometimes there are very clear answers, and sometimes the answer is,
timing,
we got screwed by the market, or we made bad choices, or, we had the wrong sales, whatever. There are so many more ways to fail than there are to succeed.
Yeah.
That it's miraculous. This 7-to-1, like, good things to bad, that basically means that you're making 7,000 right choices to your one wrong, right? That's it's a mathematically impossible expectation. So screw you and your stupid ratio. That's totally unfair.
It's actually supposed to be irrational.
Exactly. But that's exactly right. Entrepreneurship is irrational. If any of you who think that it is a good idea to start a company, get a grip. This is not a good, like, on a risk-adjusted basis, you guys are morons. That's a terrible idea. Anyone who read Tony's book, Tony's parents are like, don't sell the penthouse, it's all you have left, you know? And if it had gone the other way, he would have been like, well, Mom and Dad, how's the basement looking, you know? More power to you. It was awesome, but that's a big, bold bet, right? Yeah. You guys every day are making huge bets, and then you have to convince other people to make those same bets. That's the unbelievable part, right? Not only do you have to convince yourself that it is a good idea to take a job that has no stability at all, and where your goal is to convince people to do things that they don't want to do and shouldn't. But then you have to go convince a bunch of other people to stop doing whatever they're doing to join you. Like, how's that job at Oracle? Forget it. You should come over here. Yeah, you totally should not take that awesome job at Wired, because that's super respectable. There's no one on the planet who would think that's a dumb idea. Yeah. Join Link Exchange. You know what we're doing? We're trading, banner ads.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. How old are you guys? We're 12. Perfect. We used to deliver pizza. It's cool. Is that a good plan? I don't think so.
Absolutely.
No offense.
No offense.
It worked out.
Yeah, it all works out. All right, so.